Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is a channel for educational purposes, and we take a look at new and great and old, mostly obscure theories of everything. All-encompassing theories that you can reset your paradigm with, that give you a holistic view of the world around you and help you sort out, all of the jumbled information that you have in your head. And today is our 372nd video on the reciprocal system of theory from Dewey B. Larson. And Mr. Larson was born in 1898. Guess his birthday was November 1st. We just missed his 125th anniversary of his birth. And he died back in 1990. But not before he wrote a dozen or so books and 50 or more articles and all kinds of talks, and got a little bit of following going. And there was a journal called Reciprocity, on which a lot of papers have been published from other authors. And he also had some followers who, after his death, especially after his death, began to revise his system in small ways, especially Dr. Bruce Perret and Dr. KVK Nehru, who put out what they called RS2, the Reciprocal System 2. And I believe that's really in the spirit of the reciprocal system, but with some small changes having to do with, some of the changes are fairly large, having to do with kind of modernizing the system, putting in some things that maybe Mr. Larson wasn't aware of, or didn't have the mastery in to be able to integrate it into his theory, such as non-Euclidean geometries and Taoist philosophy and folklore and computer imaging, Jungian psychology. So the basic idea behind Larson's reciprocal system is summed up in his two fundamental postulates that he wrote in the late 1950s. And then he took those two fundamental postulates, and from them he derived a theoretical universe through a process of deduction. I did about 15 videos, maybe about 11 months ago, on the outline of the deductive development of the reciprocal system. It goes through the 165 or so steps that he took to get from his fundamental postulates all the way into this full-blown theoretical universe that he developed, and that in his books he more or less compares his theoretical universe with the universe that was observed, discovered, and measured by the legacy scientists, and recorded in their scientific tables of all of the data of the periodic table, or the all the stars that are out there in the universe and the galaxies. And it's quite impressive to see that Larson is able to practically recreate scientific data, laboratory measured data, just from theory. Larson is pulling these numbers out of his head because he has the blueprint for the universe in his head. And so he doesn't need to, see it through a telescope or a microscope. Um, he he has the simulator in his head. Okay, the two fundamental postulates. The first one is by far more important, and that is that the universe is composed of one thing, and that is motion. The universe is composed entirely of one component, motion, existing in 3 dimensions in discrete units, and with two reciprocal aspects, space and time. So, the universe is made out of motion. Motion is the relationship between space and time. Space and time are reciprocals of one another, meaning that they have the exact same qualities, but they are inverted. And neither of the two, neither space nor time, exists in and of themselves. They only exist together in motion. Motion is basically a fraction with time or space as the numerator and space or time as the denominator, except that space and time both come in multiple dimensions. And we know this because we observe space in multiple dimensions, XYZ coordinates or volume. And since space and time both have the same qualities, we can infer that time also has 3 dimensions, just like space, or we'll just say multi-dimensions. And we know time generally to be progressing. Time is always getting later and later and later and later. But it's not progressing in any specific direction. And that's what Larson calls a scalar motion. A scalar motion is a motion that has a magnitude, but it doesn't have a direction like velocity does. And so Larson calls that clock time. But then, since there is clock time, there also would be what he calls clock space. The universe is getting farther and farther and farther apart in space. And you can envision this using a balloon with dots on it. If you blow up the balloon, all of the dots are moving away from each other, but in no specific direction. And that is a scalar motion, what Larson calls clock space. And that motion has been kind of disregarded, known but disregarded by the legacy scientists. They haven't seen it in its significance. For Larson, this is really the center of his system, is this scalar motion outward. And it was observed by, I guess, Hubble, and way back in the 1920s, that all of the distant galaxies are moving away from each other. And even though that is a bona fide motion that can be observed in the natural world, the scientists still haven't really grasped on to its importance. Now, so the other thing, you got coordinate space, coordinate time, you have clock space and clock time. And space and time also only come in discrete units. There is a minimum unit of space and a minimum unit of time. You have to have a full unit before you have either. And that also means that there is a minimum unit of motion, 1 unit of space in 1 unit of time. And that is what Larson calls the speed of light. The speed of light, or unit speed, 1 over 1 equals 1. And so in Larson's system, that is the default motion of the universe, or the state of rest, or the ether, the origin, the 0 point, this reference point. Larson calls it the progression of the natural reference system, is to be moving outward at the speed of light, or outward at unit speed in all directions. That motion exists really like before the universe begins. That is the origin of the universe. So we have a universe, really a universe composed of motion. Motion is the first thing. If you have nothing, then you have motion outward at the speed of light in all directions. And that also means that that is the midpoint of the universe, and that half of the universe is actually moving faster than the speed of light, and half of the universe is moving slower. Larson refers to these as the cosmic sector and the material sector, respectively. And we, especially the legacy scientists, know very little, if anything, about the cosmic sector, but they've got the material sector pretty well mapped out, which is okay, because what is going on in the cosmic sector is exactly the same as what's going on in the material sector, except that you have to invert the roles of space and time. So in the material sector, you have the familiar relations of coordinate space, 3 dimensions of space, and clock time. The clock is always getting later and later and later. But once you cross that speed of light boundary, then you move into the cosmic sector. And in the cosmic sector, you have coordinate time, 3 dimensions of time, and you have clock space. Space is always getting later and later and later. So that's kind of how the universe of motion is constructed. We could get into some other things like the time region and the space region, which are mini regions within the material and cosmic sectors that have the characteristic of being in less than 1 unit of space or less than 1 unit of time. If you don't have a full unit of space, then you don't have space. And if you don't have space, then you only have time, because the universe is made out of motion, and motion is the relationship between space and time. So it's got to be one or the other or both. And so if you are dealing with less than 1 unit of motion, less than 1 unit of space, you have to disregard the space and move into time. So that's what Larson calls the time region within the material sector. And this is the region of atoms and molecules, a small space within 1 unit of space. 1 unit of space is 4.56 times 10 to the minus 8 meters, or about 1/500,000th of an inch. Same is true in the cosmic sector. You have what he calls the space region, which is within 1 unit of time. And time is, the 1 unit of time is 1.52 times 10 to the minus 16 seconds. 6.6 quadrillionth of a second. Instantaneous, more or less. And so that is the realm of the cosmic atoms and cosmic molecules, which is what the legacy scientists call antimatter. Okay, now today we are reading an article from Dr. Bruce Perret, and he writes under the name Daniel sometimes, Daniel Phoenix 3, when he is writing something maybe a little bit off the beaten path of the reciprocal system proper, or when he's being a little bit speculative. He claims that Daniel Phoenix III was a computer programmer at the Montauk Project, the out in Long Island, the top secret government time travel project from the 1980s. And so he brings that to the table, as well as his knowledge of the reciprocal system and some great depth in research in terms of Taoist philosophy, Jungian psychology, folklore, and mythology, and also some computer computer mapping, including projective geometry. And this article here is called The Uncommitted Investigator. And I believe this is a term from maybe Dingell's Science at the Crossroads, or can't remember who originally. Daniel will probably tell us. But it's a term that Larson used as well. The Uncommitted Investigator. And it starts with a quote from Dewey Larson. Somewhere along the line, that which is true is being made to appear false, because that which is false is accepted as truth. Larson's quote nicely sums up the current world situation. Regardless of the field of study, whether it be science, mathematics, religion, politics, or the great pumpkin. One of the first questions people ask me after they find out what I know is, why did you wait 30 years to say something? Well, I didn't. For decades, I tried to get people to listen, but no one would. I was insulted, attacked, and ridiculed for daring to say that what people were taught in schools is flat out wrong. Eventually, one concludes that it isn't worth the effort to try. So I stopped trying to get the information out and focused on understanding the things that I encountered during the Phoenix Project, but as an uncommitted investigator. Dewey Larson, one of my all-time favorite researchers and fellow uncommitted investigator, said this in a presentation to a class of chemical engineers back in 1968. And yeah, it's James Conant who coined that term. Here's Larson's quote. About 20 years ago, Dr. James B. Conant, at that time president of Harvard, gave a talk to a group of chemists and chemical executives in which he expressed serious concern over the effect of scientific progress that was likely to result from the virtual disappearance of what he called the uncommitted investigators, a term which he applied to those individuals who carry on scientific research work on their own initiative, without support from or direction by the established research agencies. As Dr. Conant put it, these individuals, quote, could investigate what they pleased, when they pleased, or break off research at any point. They were as free as the wind because they had no program except the ever-changing one in their own minds, end quote. The reason for his concern, Dr. Conant explained, was that although the great majority of new discoveries in the scientific field are made by professional scientists working under the auspices of universities or research laboratories, the really revolutionary ideas, those that actually change the course of scientific progress, have come mainly from the freewheeling activities of these uncommitted investigators. And if such individuals are no longer active, there is no assurance that these much-needed ideas will continue to materialize. In Dr. Conant's own words, The revolutionary advances in theoretical science were made very largely by amateurs. Few will deny that it is relatively easy in science to fill in the details of a new area once the frontier has been crossed. The crucial event is turning around the unexpected corner. What does he say? Turning the unexpected corner. This is not given to most of us to do. If you want advances in the basic theories of chemistry and physics in the future comparable to those of the last 2 centuries, then it would seem essential that there continue to be people in a position to turn unexpected corners. By definition, the unexpected corner cannot be turned by any operation that is planned. Okay, let me look at these footnotes here to make sure that nothing specifically relevant, it looks like. Although, quite a few things that are interesting. Okay, back to Daniel. During my own research, I turned more than a few unexpected corners that pointed out quite clearly that things we are taught are bits of truth, but almost always lead to dead ends. It is as though human knowledge has been guided into these dead ends and strong walls erected to keep people from thinking outside the box. True research, having been taken over by corporations, became a tool for profit, not a tool for understanding. It is only the few uncommitted investigators working in back rooms, basements, and garages that have obtained new knowledge and tried to make it public, usually to be bought out by corporations, silenced under so-called national security, or ridiculed into obscurity. The research I put forth is not secret. It is just the common factor to a lot of other research done by dozens of other uncommitted investigators over the last 200 years. The references I give can be found in most public libraries. Take a dose of Larson, Maxwell, Steinmetz, Keeley, and Tesla, mix with some medieval Christianity, Vedic epics, and Hermes Trismegistus. Shake well, and season with a good dose of Sumerian mythology and Celtic folklore. What you get from that concoction is the knowledge that was forbidden by the gods, the secret science that contradicts everything you know. It takes the mind a while to unlearn everything it has been programmed to believe by those powers that be. My papers directly contradict everything you've been taught as truth. For example, the substance of the universe is not matter, but motion, an abstract ratio of change that we call space-time. Faster than light speeds are commonplace, the rule, not the exception, which is a slap in the face to Einstein. Astronomers have everything backwards. Stars begin their life as red giants and end it as blue giants, exploding in supernova. Galaxies form from globular clusters, to irregulars, to spirals, to giant spherical structures, and then explode, producing quasars. The geological dating system is based on a false premise. Things are much younger than stated by geologists. Correlations are missed because of this, such as the biblical appearance of Adam and Eve coinciding with the sudden appearance of Cro-Magnon man. Anthropology became the study of how to hide the true origins of Homo sapiens. Fact is, mankind may have more in common with Godzilla than with Neanderthals. Religion is not what you think. It's the code of enslavement, not enlightenment. So, when you read my papers and start screaming, that's wrong, I was taught that, ... remember that I've heard it all before. I was taught it all before, and I used to believe it. Then I found none of what I was taught came close to explaining the things I saw and worked with, forcing me to accept that everything I knew was wrong. It took a lot of time and effort to work around all those built-in biases, and they put up quite a fight. But once I was able to steer myself clear and take a clean look at what now seems obvious, a much simpler view of the universe emerged, one that opens the doors to some amazing possibilities. The research contained in my papers is not channeled, received telepathically, supplied by extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, angels, demons, gods, or any other source outside of a lot of hard work and good old-fashioned know-how by a few dedicated, uncommitted investigators that want to figure out what is out there, not be handed a book on the universe for dummies by the next Vogon constructor ship that happens to pass by Earth, laying out a route for a hyperspace bypass. This approach was a matter of choice by those involved because we wanted to demonstrate firsthand to those very extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, angels, demons, gods, devils, and whatever else is out there, that mankind has learned to think for himself and is ready, willing, and able to take his place in the universe as a peaceful explorer that other worlds want as a good neighbor and friend. I think we are all fed up with the violent, domineering agendas of the few reptilian wannabes that are out to control every aspect of our lives. It may be who they are, but it is not who we are. We are mankind, children of the sons of God and the daughters of Earth, unique in this galaxy. We have a place in the scheme of things, not as conquerors, not as slaves, but as fellow travelers on this great path that all life walks to understanding the mysteries of the universe. So sayonara, Saurians. Homo sapiens has had enough and is ascending without you to stand as equals with those of the stars. I started with a quote from Larson, and I'm going to finish with one, which is from the last paragraph in the book Universe of Motion, which is Larson's book, one of his books on astronomy. Quote, the more complete understanding of physical existence opens the door to an exploration of existence as a whole, including those non-physical areas that have hitherto had to be left to religion and related branches of thought. It is now evident that our familiar material world is not the whole of existence, as modern science would have us believe. It is only a part, perhaps a very small part, of a greater whole. All right, that's the end of the quote from Dewey B. Larson, and that is the end of the paper from Daniel Phoenix 3 called The Uncommitted Investigator. I'd say that amen to that. And I feel like I'm trying to live up to that legacy left behind by Daniel Phoenix 3. And I'm hoping that my channel, lives up to that in some small way. And I appreciate that you are tuning in. And tomorrow we'll be back with another episode and another hopefully thought-provoking and inspiring selection. So thanks for tuning in and have a great